is 5:06 p.m. I would like to call this meeting of the Hannaford Regional Technical School District special meeting to order. So, can we do introduction of board members? Lorraine, you're in my left-hand column, so why don't we start with you, and I'll just...
Okay, Lorraine Morse, representing Addison Central School District.
Patrice? Patrice?
Oh, I have to, Patrice Alexander. From the Career Center. I'm sorry, I've never done this. I was
Kim?
taking it off.
I'm Kim Farnham, and I'm the community large member. Hello.
Dana?
From, thank you.
Dana Peterson, Superintendent here, Hannaford Career Center.
Glenn?
Len Schmidt, Adult Education and Cooperative Education for the Hannaford Center.
Nick?
Nick Colston, representing ACSD.
Linda?
Linda Barrett, clerk.
Brenda?
Is she muted?
Are
Yeah.
you muted?
No, Judd Mark, report large.
Could you say that again?
Judd Kowski at large.
So, Judd, you are workforce, you would introduce yourself as the workforce member? Okay,
Workforce
investment.
investment member. Super, thank you.
You're welcome. Sean?
Sean and Workforce Investment.
Andrea?
Annie Denny, and I represent from the Mount Abe district, from the Mount Abe School Board.
Mike?
Mike McGrath, Addison Northwest Supervisory Unit.
Gibson?
Gibson Smith, Business Manager at Hannaford Career Center.
Kelly?
Kelly Mills, Dean of Students of Sustainable Agriculture, Instructor at Hannaford Career Center.
Gretchen? Somewhere?
Where'd she go?
Gretchen? I see your arm. Penelope? And my screen says Penelope and then one more, but I don't know who the one more is.
And she's on here, Gretchen Bill.
Thank you, Gretchen.
You're welcome.
Denise is also on.
Hey, Denise.
Sorry?
Hey, Penny.
Hi.
Hi.
Denise Benesack, Hannaford Career Center Administrative Assistant and Registrar.
Did we get everyone?
I'm going to ask you
She waived technical communications, Hannaford Career Center guest.
Suzanne?
Yeah, yes.
I'm going to ask if Patrice will make sure that we get the record for Linda as well for attendees, both of the board and guests. And I think she did it for us last time. So, Patrice, if you're still on, did you hear that?
I did hear that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, one thing that might makes me go a little better, if you're not speaking, if you mute yourself because whatever's going on behind you, or if you're shuffling papers,
Not nice, Sean.
everyone will hear it. And Brenda says that she can't unmute for some reason. So she's apologizing. She's here but not able to unmute. So,
If that happens, Suzanne, a strategy that some of us have used have been to leave the meeting and join back in, and that might actually reset the microphone. But just a suggestion.
So Brenda, it was suggested that maybe if you leave the meeting and come back in, it might juggle the unmute so that you can participate. Seems like a lot of people just did that. Are there any comments from the visitors? Visitor comments? Okay, I hear none. Dana, do we have any correspondence? Dana?
He's muted right now.
Sorry, I was muted and I left the screen, so I couldn't unmute myself. My apologies.
Correspondence?
There is no correspondence this month, but you did ask me to say something about procedures for making comments from visitors, and I should say something about that.
Please.
Visitors should join the chat box and indicate that they want to say something, and then we can recognize them from the chat so that we can keep visitor comments orderly. That chat box can also be used for other offline information that would be important for you or me to see, but that is the box that we use for people to line up to make comments. Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Kim?
Moved by
Second,
Kim,
Nick?
seconded by Nick. Is there any discussion or conversation about approving the agenda as written? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. Please unmute. All those in favor of approving the agenda as written, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Nick, do you have the expenditures or am I the only one with a copy?
No, I do not. You must be the only one.
Okay, if you are okay with it, Nick, I will read what I was given.
I did not sign this week's. So I don't know if anybody else signed them.
I went in and I read them Tuesday morning, so I know I signed, but
I don't know if anybody else has.
Missy's going to sign tomorrow. She'll be in the office and she'll be reviewing and signing them tomorrow.
so then Dana, procedurally, should we hold off on reading the expenditures since they are not completely?
No, they can be done subject to approval. So I would read them and indicate that that they're being approved subject to the final review tomorrow.
Okay, so for the May 3rd, 2020 expenditures that will have a final approval tomorrow, building and equipment reserve, there was none. For general fund, 4/21/20, there were checks of $53,711.79. There was a voucher that will be written from May 6th, $15,013.09 for a total of $68,724.88. Out of the revolving fund, April 21st, total was $8,202.82. The McClure grant, there was nothing. The Makery, there was nothing. Payroll, April 10th, was $82,862.44. Payroll of April 17th, 2020 was $83,305.73. So those will be finalized tomorrow.
As a point of order, I would just like to say that there was a schedule put out 3 months ago saying which dates the checks should be signed at. And the date put on that schedule was next week.
Yes, Nick, let me introduce something. It was brought to my attention that our bills would have been paid late, and we would have been subject to late fees on several of them because of the timing. We did not know that at the time that the schedule was put out. And so when it was brought to my attention, I said, let's see if we can do it this week, which would have corresponded with our payroll week anyway, and asked that the board members who do review come in earlier so that we wouldn't incur fees.
Are there still going to be checks for next week?
There may, yeah.
Nick, I asked that question and I was told that there would be more checks next week.
Okay.
So,
I can do next week.
okay, so board members, just a moment, Linda. I asked you to mute so that we didn't hear the background noise, but what I've just been informed is that if you've muted yourself, because the number of people that are on the phone call, that it's not allowing people to unmute. So I guess what we're gonna have to do is if you're muted and you're stuck, go out, come back in, and then leave yourself unmuted and be cognizant of papers. Lorraine, will that work? No? Can you type in the chat when you have comments? Linda, you had a comment?
I also do not have a printed copy of those bills to include in the minutes.
I will mail you mine.
Okay.
Or I can scan it and send it to you.
That would be great, thank you.
Yeah.
It may be simpler, Suzanne, to just have the office send those to Linda, whether that's Gretchen or Patrice, and they can do that first thing in the morning.
Is Gretchen still on, or I see her head? Maybe Gretchen, can you get those to Linda? Thank you. Moving into the action agenda, we have first item, which is a staffing FY21, a new hire assistant director. Dana?
Yes. In your packet, you should have a resume for Joseph, otherwise known as Jay Stetzel. He is the unanimous recommendation of the Assistant Director Screening Committee and my recommendation to the board to be the new Assistant Director at the Career Center. You will see that Jay has a variety of experiences, both educationally and administratively, and that for the last several years he has served in an administrative capacity at the in the Addison Northwest School District at Virginia Union High School. He has played a role both as an assistant principal and as a director of guidance. And it was the recommendation of the committee that he had the broadest experience as well as the most in-depth work with students in a variety of capacity and administrative working with teachers and board. So it's with my pleasure to present Jay Stetzel as the nominee for your consideration.
Are there any questions for Dana first before I ask for a motion to accept? May I have a motion to accept the committee's and Dana's recommendation of Jay Stetzel for the Assistant Director position for FY21?
So moved.
So Sean moved. And Judd seconded. It's been moved and seconded. Jay Stetzel as the FY21 Assistant Director. Is there any discussion about the motion? Nope. We'll proceed to vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Yeah.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? You hired a new assistant director. Dana, will you reach out to Jay and let him know, or?
I will communicate. He and I have been in constant communication, since the committee, made the recommendation to me, and we've been moving that process along, and we will move towards onboarding, within the next week or so.
Chris, I'm on a Zoom meeting, can I call you back?
So the next item is, board retreat. I had sent out August 5th, I believe was the date I sent out. Which is a Wednesday night, and most people that came back and said they could do it, the question was whether it was gonna be during the day or at night. I didn't ask that question, so I don't have that information for people. What's your druthers? We normally do about 3 to 4 hours.
So what was that date?
It was August 5th, Wednesday.
I would say night meeting for me is good.
I agree, night, Sean Flynn.
Judd Markowski, evening would be best.
Annie Denny, evening would be better for me.
Kim Farnham, evening is fine. Thank you.
Nick Colston, evening is fine.
Rain back? Rain? Evening? Yes? No? So I'm gonna say by that, response that it'll be August 5th at night.
Suzanne?
Yes, Dana?
If I may, when we've done an evening meeting, we usually, look at, starting late afternoons. We don't have to go too far into the evening. So my question would be, the timing and whether a 4 o'clock meeting would be, manageable. For staff, we will do dinner, on that evening, but, a 4 or 4:30, start time would allow us to finish before it gets, too late into the evening, if that is acceptable to members of the board, and if that's doable.
So would 4 o'clock work for everyone?
Judd, yes.
Mike, yes?
Nick, yes.
Kim, yes.
Sean, yes.
Annie, yes.
Okay. Lorraine says yes. Right, so we'll start at 4, and if people are finishing up from work and end up having to be a few minutes late, if they just let us know, that would be great. But we'll plan on starting at 4 with dinner, and we should be done by 8.
Suzanne, we can probably have dinner a little bit later if that is more convenient, but, we have done, 5:30, just so that we can get a little bit of the business portion taken care of. We have dinner, then we break, and then we go into the retreat mode usually.
Okay. And I was just saying that we would do dinner that night. I didn't really intend for anybody to think that we were gonna make them eat at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
I know 4 o'clock eating for some people is a little early. So, we'd also put on here topics for the retreat, and I know past years we've talked policies, we've talked about the fact that we are a governance style board and helping the people understand what governance style boarding looks like and what it is and what your responsibilities are. One thing I had said to Dana was that, well, none of us really know what school's gonna look like in the fall. And I know the superintendents are all waiting for guidance from the Agency of Ed. There's rumors running around like crazy as to what school's gonna look like or not look like. So I had suggested to Dana that we want to use some of that board retreat just to enlighten board members as to what the start of school was gonna look like, what he might need help with, yada, yada, yada. That was my thought. Does anybody else have any thoughts as to what they might like to see during that retreat?
This is Mike. Yeah, definitely see what we're gonna have for money and kind of know what our year's gonna look like. I think would be the best thing so we can prepare for next year.
Anyone else have any thoughts or? No? You guys are all so quiet.
Suzanne, we might want to also include a question regarding either review of programming or, and in addition to financials, looking at possibilities, setting some, short-term goals for the year that would help us to set a direction in a time where we're looking at some financial challenges. So after providing that information, it would be good for us to have some type of action steps that would be turned over to the superintendent for operations and things to consider as we move through the year with that backdrop as a company. Lorraine also had a suggestion in the chat box, and that was programming given financial crisis and already high budget. So I think she was confirming what I suggested.
Okay.
If people come up with other suggestions, may I suggest that they email them to you? And then when you and I sit down to do our planning, we can look at who might facilitate that and how to fashion those items into a coherent agenda. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Mike. I assume we know we're gonna be meeting in person at that point. I mean, it's August, so I assume we're gonna be.
That would be hopeful. Yep.
Remember, my field days was the next week and they canceled that.
Yeah, I'm bummed.
Suzanne, this is Daniel again. One of the things that we've been talking about as part of our facilities as well as safety and leadership team is providing markers, as supermarkets have done, in our meeting spaces to ensure social distancing. Because our numbers are just over 10, we're hoping that by the time we get to August, smaller meetings under 20 should be allowable, and that would provide us with an opportunity to lay out the conference room with appropriate social distancing, so that we may actually be able to have an in-person meeting at that time. We are trying to think ahead. So to Mike's point, it would be, I think, helpful if we could be meeting in person at that point in time, and we lay out the space to ensure that we are complying with appropriate protocols and health procedures and measures.
Okay. So, since the board retreat was under the action agenda, I would need a motion to accept the August 5th as our board retreat.
I move that we accept the August 5th board retreat. This is Judd. At the 4 o'clock time, allowing for an early release or a reasonable release with dinner sometime served.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
This is Mike. I'll second that.
Thank you, Mike. It's been moved and seconded to have a board retreat on August 5th, starting at 4. with dinner at some point during the evening with an early time end. Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion's passed.
Suzanne, just a follow-up from a question in the chat box. It was brought to our attention that we did not review the minutes in the consent agenda, and if it may have been passed inadvertently, that there was at least one correction maybe in the minutes, so if they could be pulled for further discussion, I think that would be Linda's preference.
Okay, can I have a motion to pull the minutes of April 8th from the consent agenda for correction?
No, to make the corrections, not to pull them. They're already out.
All right.
So you don't have to have a motion to pull them. You have to have a motion to approve the changes.
Okay, so Linda, do you want to tell us what the changes are?
So the changes would be that I have Andrea Denny as attending the meeting, and we introduced her as a new member, but she was not present. And then in the other informational agenda, there was an error that the community engagement was meeting in September. They're actually meeting April 29th.
And that actually occurred already, yep.
Okay. Are there any other corrections or omissions that were in the last minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of April 8th, 2020 as amended?
So moved. Kim?
Kim,
So moved.
Kim moved it, Nick seconded it. Is there any further discussion on the minutes of April 8th? Hearing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor of approving the minutes of April 8th, 2020 as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Extensions? Motion is passed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Informational agenda. Everyone was sent a lot of reports and asked if you had any questions to bring them with you, because we weren't actually going to read them out loud to each of you. So the floor is open for any questions, and you may direct your questions to whomever.
I would like to, Nick, I would like to compliment Dana on his report, which was really very interesting with the stories of the various programs. I thought it was fantastic.
Nick, thank you for that. I did have a lot of support and input from the staff in order to be able to pull that together. So I will pass along your appreciation to others who helped me provide that program information. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions out there?
Suzanne, if people are waiting or thinking about questions, I would like to do two small updates.
Okay.
One is under the business office, and Gibson mentioned in his report that we would do an update from a May 4th joint fiscal office webinar that we attended, and the projections right now, they have a better handle on where things are. So that the FY21 budget, correct me, Gibson, if I get this incorrect in any way, but I think that what they mentioned was a deficit of 151 million, and that's been upgraded a little bit from where we thought it might be when they presented last time for next year. So I think it went from 120 to 120, 130 in that range up to 151, and they're looking at a 23-cent impact to taxpayers unless the legislature takes some action to amortize that over a series of years. So that is the newest information that we have from that joint fiscal office update. Gibson, I think you were on that call as well. Is that your recollection? You may be muted, Gibson, I don't know.
Just, I'm in agreement with what you put out there for the board. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, by the way, for a very complete report on our financials and where we are at this point in time. My other comment or observation, while people are thinking about any questions they may have, was with regards to my report. I want to highlight the last page. We are working, and I want to thank the leadership team for this. We're working with the Addison County Workforce Alliance to put together a survey of our membership, people who, from an employee perspective, of what people will need in transition back to a more open economy with a projected unemployment rate of 20%. We think that there are people who might have needs and training needs included, as well as service needs, and we're working in partnership with them to address that. Thank you.
So has anybody come up with any burning questions that you might have?
Suzanne, Kim here. Not necessarily a question, but just a public, for the record, a thank you to Wendy Pratt for all her efforts in regards to the baccalaureate organization, international baccalaureate organizational piece for the application, and it has been accepted, which thank her for doing that remotely, and hopefully it'll move to the next step.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you. So, Dana, may I ask you this time, just a burning question I've got is, as we move forward, and I know a lot of it lies in the hands of the Agency of Ed, Friday or whenever they make their official announcement about end of school and graduation, but how are we doing with moving forwards in our anticipated plans and what we might be thinking about doing for our seniors?
Kelly and Wendy have been working on a virtual Q3 recognition, and we're in the process of working with the teachers to actually put that together. We're hoping to use that as a springboard for doing a virtual recognition for celebration of learning and acknowledging industry recognized credentials and achievements by students in the event that we can't do anything in person. We are anticipating that there might be a variety of ways in which we can recognize those students, and we were looking at potentially bringing people together in small groups and also helping people to access a ceremony remotely in small groups, because we know that there are some equity issues among our clientele, and we want to make sure that everybody would have access to that. So if we are doing it remotely, we're trying to figure out how more people can participate by coming to an access point where they would potentially view a virtual ceremony in a small group with the relaxed restriction. Ideally, we could do, depending on what is announced at AOE, we would like to be able to do something at least in small groups for recognizing those completers. We do have, what's the number, Kelly, 89, is that the last
number? Yes, 89 seniors.
89, yeah. So we're hoping that we can do a variety of things. We are taking a recommendation to connect with United Way for potentially doing some funding, where we get some posters that would recognize each person individually for who they are, their school they represent, and their name and achievements. And we'll be providing more information about that. We are looking at making sure that we can get a picture of every student and putting that up in some format on social media so that the community will know of the accomplishments of our students. But we are also still holding out some hope that we can do some potentially in-person ceremonies and recognitions. But we'll have to wait for Dan French's guidance on what that would allow. But I'd say right now we're trying to be as flexible as possible, taking into consideration what we're doing for Q3 recognitions in a completely virtual environment, and going from there to completely in person, which we don't think would be that would be the best case scenario, but we don't think that's quite achievable. So we're ready to do anything between.
Please include the board, so if there's anything the board can assist with, or, even if it's just reaching out and asking someone if they thought, could do this help, please make sure that the boards, we're more than willing to help, but if we don't know what the need is, we can't help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. At this point, it would mostly be on logistics and access to the technology is probably where we'd be looking for ideas or support. So people can think about that, how others in their community might be able to access things if we're doing it remotely.
Thank you. Moving on, policy 4.1 governing style. Anne is looking like, what is this? So I'm not even going to ask Anne. Who can I pick on? Sean.
Hi. I think you're doing a heck of a job. This is a particularly difficult format to be working in. And given the situation, I feel like it's running smoothly. We're covering all the topics, and bravo all the way around.
Thank you, Sean. So, Anne, just to let you know, what the 4.1 governing style is, it's like a reflection by a board member at the end of the meeting about how we did, or, did the meeting flow? Did we get off task? Did we stay on task? Did we have sidebar conversations or not? Things like that. So it's kind of like our own reflection on our own behavior. Okay? Next is executive session, negotiations, and personnel. May I have a motion to move into executive session?
So move.
So Nick moved it, Kim seconded to move into executive session for the purpose of negotiations and personnel. We will give MCTV a couple minutes and our guests a couple minutes to disappear, and then we'll be in executive session.